This week, headlines say it all. Government shutdown, federal workers without pay, millions of families facing the end of food assistance. When the system shuts down, who keeps people alive? And whose stories do we remember when survival depends on silence? In the late 1960s, Fannie Lou Hamer, a poor sharecropper from Mississippi, helped launch the Freedom Farm Cooperative. She didn't have the money to buy farmland herself, but she worked with a collective of Black farmers, community organizers, and donors to secure acres of land where people could grow food, raise livestock, and build homes. And she did it because she saw her neighbors starving into silence. If you spoke up for justice, you could lose your job, your rations, even your life. So together, they built something stronger than fear, a community farm that turned survival into freedom. Today, in November 2025, millions of Americans face the same question. Who feeds us when the system stops? The shutdown means no new food aid this month. Mothers are skipping meals so their kids can eat. Food banks are running dry. Different century, same hunger. And just like Hamer, communities are learning to grow, trade, and organize because survival has always been a collective act. When I first learned about Fannie Lou Hamer, I was struck by her courage. She didn't wait for a system to fix itself. She built a new one, rooted in community care and the belief that freedom and food were one and the same. 18 years before Hamer's farm took root, a woman named Henrietta Lacks walked into Johns Hopkins Hospital. She was 31, a mother of five. Doctors took her cells without asking. Those cells, now known as HeLa cells, became immortal. They helped create the polio vaccine, gene mapping, IVF, and more. But for decades, her family couldn't afford the very care those cells made possible. When her descendants finally spoke up, they weren't demanding recognition. They were reclaiming control over a story that had been stolen. Black women are still fighting to be seen in medicine, in policy, and in pain. Henrietta's story reminds us if people can take from your body and not hear your voice, the system isn't just broken, it's cruel. And some say it's working exactly as designed. And that's why we tell these stories, because every headline about policy really is about people. People like Henrietta, like Fannie, and like women standing in food lines today, holding families together while the world debates budgets. What does your organization do with the girls who join? Can you talk a little bit about that?
So, Esther, my program is specifically set up for girls who go and visit their parents over the weekend. And let's think about this. Sunday comes. Sunday is visitation day. You get up early, you get excited, and you go see your loved one incarcerated. But then you have to leave. And it's like you're leaving half of your heart in a place that you don't have access to. All right, Esther, now I want you to go to school. And I want you to sit still for 8 hours. And I want you to listen to me give you directions and instructions. But I don't know what you went through Sunday. I don't know that you cried in the shower, you cried in the bathtub.
That was Dominique Johnson, the director of a nonprofit that helps girls visit their fathers who are serving prison sentences. In our interview, she showed me how systems still forget the very people they claim to serve. Her program, Daughters Beyond Incarceration, makes space for those stories, showing that these girls didn't write history books, but their lived experience are the heartbeat of a new history. When I listen to voices like Dominique's, I'm reminded that every policy failure has a human face, and that sometimes the quietest voices carry the loudest truth. Across the country right now, ordinary people are doing what Fannie Lou Hamer did, turning desperation into self-reliance. In places like Detroit, Michigan, New Orleans, Louisiana, and Baltimore, Maryland, urban farm collectives and mutual aid groups are distributing fresh produce to families cut off from SNAP benefits. Faith groups are pooling resources to feed school children while federal funds are frozen. These are modern day freedom farms, grassroots economies built on care. The details have changed, credit cards instead of cotton sacks, but the truth is the same. When government stops, neighbors start. And that's not a new idea. It's the oldest form of democracy we have. The shutdown isn't only about paychecks or pantries, it's about health. Community health centers that serve 1 in 11 Americans have seen their funding frozen. Clinics in Georgia, Mississippi, and Ohio are closing doors or cutting staff. In some towns, nurses are working without pay to keep children vaccinated and elderly patients seen. They call it service on faith. Advocacy organizations like Move On and Public Citizen have launched a national campaign, 500,000 calls to Congress to protect health care funding during this shutdown. It's a different battlefield, but the same fight that Henrietta Lacks knew, the right to be seen, heard, and healed without being used or forgotten. When systems fail, the body becomes the battleground again, but so does the voice. And today, voices are rising in every state to say healthcare is not a privilege, it's a promise. Before I wrap up, I want to share a part of an interview with a woman named Melody Capote. She brought out a point that I believe more Black and brown folks are beginning to understand and share about the African diaspora.
The center was founded on the premise that we as people of African descent share a common thread, that wherever in the diaspora, the dispersal of Africans, because many people don't know what the term diaspora means, it's dispersal. Wherever we were dispersed, wherever we landed, wherever the ships stopped, wherever we are present today, the common thread we share is our root culture in Africa. And so through art, or I should say through culture, we have been able to use tools like art, sacred traditions, music, dance, food, language, as a way of educating our audiences, educating general audiences about the common thread we share, the similarities we share, and also some of the differences, right? A common one, language, the language of the colonizer. Islands that speak French versus those of us who speak Spanish versus those that speak English. But again, rooted in African traditions that while our culture was intentionally ripped away and taken away, the work of the center seeks to reclaim much of what was lost in the slave trade and through the business of enslavement in this country.
Melody Capote is the director of the Caribbean Cultural Center African Diaspora Institute in Harlem, New York. Her words reminded me that survival isn't just about food or medicine. It's about memory. It's about the rhythm that connects every branch of the African world from Mississippi to Maryland to the Caribbean. When we speak of systems failing, we're really talking about the walls between us, the false borders around history, language, or geography. But those borders dissolve in the sound of a drum, or the taste of a shared meal, or the act of telling a story that travels farther than any ship ever could. Hamer, Lacks, Dominique Johnson, their stories are chapters in one book. And Melody's reminder is the spine that holds it together. We are more same than different. And when we remember that, we rise together. I really believe that history doesn't repeat itself, but people do. We repeat silence, we repeat forgetting, and then we call it progress. But every time we tell a story, we interrupt that pattern. Fannie Lou Hamer's farm taught us self-determination. Henrietta Lacks taught us consent and ownership of our humanity. Dominique Johnson and Melody Capote remind us that the work continues and that our stories are still being written by those who refuse to give up. And today's nurses, gardeners, and organizers carry that torch forward, proof that the story never ends with a shutdown. We can't control every policy or program, but we can control which stories we keep alive and a power that can keep us fed. When I think about what's happening today, I hear the echoes of Hamer, of Lacks, and the daughters who keep showing up, and the voices like Melody Capote's that remind us that we are one people with many languages. Women who weren't supposed to change history but did, simply by naming what they saw and refusing to look away. That's what journalists, parents, and community builders do every day. We record history in real time. We speak so the next generation doesn't have to start from scratch.